hypothetical, if the Knicks somehow were able to get him.
Here we go.
No, but would he instantly be the face of the league?
See, faces of the league, to me, he would be one of. Because there's really, until you are Kobe, LeBron, Michael, Magic, and Bird, championship caliber type, Shaq, that's when you become face of the league. Just because you're really good and you're an all-star and you're in a big market, you got to win. They're not going to catapult you to be the guy until you get those rings. It just doesn't work like that.
I feel like, and I don't know if it's different in the NFL, the league doesn't catapult you to be the face. You catapult yourself to be the face, but one of the ways you help yourself get there is by winning a world championship.
But the league signs off on it indirectly.
Media and fans are the
you
ones that make this decision.
Huh?
Yes. The media and fans make this
Yes.
decision,
Yes.
and then the league
It's-
builds
it
off
builds
of
off
that
of that,
momentum.
yes.
So if the league doesn't build off of it and they don't sign off on it, when I say sign off on it, that means build off of it. And if they don't and they ignore it, you don't become the face of the league.
888-say-ESPN, 888-729-3776 on that
Think
question
about it,
again.
though, Jay.
But Giannis was a back-to-back.
The NFL and the NBA are so different.
No, but think.
Yeah.
Just
I
think
know,
about
I-
this for a
I
minute.
disagree
Let's
with you
go
on this, though,
and
because-
that's fine. We
yeah.
don't have to agree. But think about it for a minute. You go all the way back to Larry and Magic. They're the two individuals that took the eyeballs to television.
Yep.
And the league built that. They said
a relationship
to themselves,
built in the college game, remember?
a relationship built in the college game, but it came to the NBA. The NBA was struggling. And they said, you know what? Boom. They took those two, stuck them up to another level, brought in Dr. J, kind of moved that thing around, created this. Then Michael comes. He wins the championships. Michael becomes the face. They kind of are there. They're fading out a little bit. Now Kobe comes. Kobe winning these championships along with Shaq is kind of.
Now, can I point something
they
out?
put Penny in there for a little bit.
Let me point something out. What you just and again, this was David Stern's brilliance. And what is all of that? They all have one thing in common. Everybody you just named.
Big markets.
Yes.
Yes, big markets.
And what has happened since then? San Antonio Spurs, right? Like a small market. Like you started to see more of the small markets getting more of the attention. Zion is in New Orleans.
San Antonio championships, but nobody in San Antonio with championships was being pushed as the face
Nobody
of
was
the
a face.
league.
Giannis is a two-time MVP and never has been the face. Like you would think the MVP back-to-back years, you would be the face of the league, right? But he never became that.
But he's not, because he's not going to surpass LeBron James.
Right.
LeBron James is the face of the
And
NBA.
LeBron was the one guy that stayed in a small market and became the face of the
Well,
league.
he really didn't stay in a small one. He went to Miami and won those championships and then went back.
Let me keep.
You know?
Here's one of the differences, I think, between football has definitely gotten there, right? But, like, I don't know, would you guys disagree? Is basketball at the epicenter of, like, the cultural experience as it relates to sports? Like, the way they can move the needle, basketball players as opposed to football players? That's why I kind of disagree on
influential.
It feels like with the NFL, you have to get the blessing from the league to support you as one of their all-time greats. And it's like it feels like the NBA drafts off who the people tell them is the face of the league in the NBA.
You mean as far as promotion goes?
Yes.
Yeah, when there's momentum behind you, yeah, then I think the league rides that momentum.
The league signs off on
I don't know if I think the NFL is starting to do that now.
Yeah, but the NFL is more about the quarterback. It's the quarterback.
But it's more about the shield being the brand. See, I think NFL, the shield, then I think players. NBA, I think players, then I think the NBA.
But see, my perspective isn't coming from the NFL. My perspective is coming from being around the NBA for so many years and watching it and seeing how if a guy like Dame Lillard leaves Portland.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Instantly gets catapulted up at a different
depending
level.
Upon where he goes.
Depending on where he goes.
Depending on where he goes. Even though we know who he is because we're NBA guys, there's a lot of people out here in the universe that's like, okay, we know who Dame is, but they don't really know. Like, they don't understand who he is. And I think for people to really dive into it and understand it, he needs to be in LA or Chicago.
But see, that's crazy to me because Dame's on every damn commercial.
I know. But
you see him all the time, everywhere.
That part's true. Well, let's bring in a former NBA player, Quentin Richardson. Q Rich joins us right now on the Goodyear Hotline, friend of the show. Good morning,
What's
Q.
What's going on, fellas?
Just based off what we were saying, I'm sure you probably heard a little bit of that. I mean, from your experience, again, on around the league in your time, it's the small market, big market thing has always been something that the NBA's tried to downplay. Like, no, everybody's equal, everybody's the same. But Is it that way? Is playing in one market versus another? Is that different for every player? Is that different for? Could it take a player who's already a star and turn him into a megastar?
I believe it can. I definitely believe it can. I mean, Dame is a great example to me. I mean, like Jay Will said, I mean, on the endorsement and money side, he's as big as you could possibly get, I believe. I mean, he's on all of the commercials. He's got plenty of endorsements. He's making top dollar from the NBA, and I'm pretty sure from his shoe and endorsement deals. But, I mean, I do feel that if he played in New York, Chicago, LA, that he would be, to the people, he would be a much bigger figure. He would be more known. They would know more intimately about him, and I think he would just be more liked and more put up on a superstar type pedestal if he was in one of those cities.
Because he got all that snack, crackle, pop with him too.
He does. Now Luka Doncic is
exactly.
We've never really seen an international player get to that level. I mean, Dirk's the closest I think we got to, was somebody that was just really beloved, but did he really get to the megastar level? Whereas if you don't know basketball, you still know who Dirk is. Could Luka do that if he, of course, me, I'm always trying to pull an angle, wound up in a place like New York?
I mean, obviously, if he went to New York or somewhere, he could do that. But I think Luka is doing just fine right now. I think he's well on his way to like he them said. If he gets him a championship, I mean, I think when you think about Dirk, that's when Dirk became his biggest. Yep. When he beat the Heat, beat LeBron and D Wade, and won that championship, and was the MVP of the finals. That raised him and put him in a different place. Like historically, I feel like Luka, he's well on his way, regardless if he wins a championship or not, to being one of those guys. It's like one of the guys, the faces of the league. He's first team All NBA already, and I mean he's going to be in that MVP conversation literally probably every year. And if he gets a chance to where Dallas puts a team around him and he gets to make a deep playoff run and gets a chance at the finals or something like that, I think he'll really cement his position as one of those guys.